Have you ever felt that unsettling sensation in your gut when someone seems too good to be true? That nagging feeling that something's off, even when you can't quite put your finger on it. Perhaps you've experienced the confusion of an interaction that left you questioning your own reality, or found yourself apologizing for things you're not sure you actually did wrong. You're not imagining things. Your intuition is trying to protect you from one of the most dangerous threats to your emotional well-being, a wolf in sheep's clothing. According to the American Psychological Association, approximately 47% of both women and men will experience some form of psychological aggression, including manipulation tactics like gaslighting, coercive control, and emotional exploitation at some point in their lifetime. This isn't a rare occurrence. This is epidemic. The most dangerous predators don't announce themselves with fangs bared and claws extended. They come disguised as saviors, wrapped in charm, wearing masks of concern and love. They tell you everything you've always wanted to hear, make you feel special in ways you've never felt before, and slowly, so slowly you barely notice, they take pieces of your soul until you're no longer sure who you are anymore. But here's the empowering truth. Wolves in sheep's clothing follow patterns. They use predictable tactics, and once you know what to look for, you can spot them before they sink their teeth in. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on manipulation, expose the hidden tactics of emotional predators, and arm you with the knowledge to protect yourself and those you love. The psychology of the predator. Before we dive into the warning signs, we need to understand what drives someone to become a wolf in sheep's clothing. Manipulation isn't about passion or loss of control, it's about one thing: power. Psychological manipulation is defined as the exercise of undue influence through mental distortion and emotional exploitation with the intention to seize power, control, benefits, and privileges at the victim's expense. The manipulator deliberately creates an imbalance of power and exploits their victim to serve their own agenda. Research has identified that manipulative behavior often stems from several sources. Some individuals with narcissistic personality disorder manipulate others to fulfill their needs for attention and admiration, driven by deep-seated psychological needs and a requirement to maintain a sense of superiority. Others develop manipulative behaviors from being raised in dysfunctional families, where such tactics were normalized, learned survival mechanisms that become ingrained and carried into adult relationships. Here's what's crucial to understand. Manipulators are emotionally intelligent. They're exceptionally good at reading emotions, but they use that skill to pick up on your weaknesses and exploit them. They understand human psychology, social dynamics, and exactly which emotional buttons to push. They know how to make you feel seen, valued, and special, and that's precisely what makes them so dangerous. The first strike: love bombing and excessive attention. The first tactic in a manipulator's playbook is often the most confusing. They make you feel absolutely amazing. Love bombing is the showering of someone with praise, attention, and gifts to quickly establish an emotional bond. In the initial stages, a wolf in sheep's clothing will overwhelm you with constant attention and affection, making you feel like the most special person in the world. They text constantly. They call just to hear your voice. They remember tiny details you mentioned in passing. They declare deep feelings remarkably quickly. A Harvard psychologist with 25 years of experience warns that while this behavior might seem like a healthy honeymoon phase, there are subtle differences. Healthy new relationships can handle a slower pace, some predictability, and an appreciation of each person's uniqueness. But love bombers become irritated or withdraw when you don't match their intensity or speed. Watch for these specific patterns. They ask deeply personal questions very early on, pushing for deep emotional intimacy before you've built genuine trust. They may show up with last-minute surprises, concert tickets, flowers, elaborate plans, always organizing everything without asking what you want. This isn't romance, it's stealth control. They're getting what they want without ever having to ask, creating a dynamic where you're along for their ride rather than building something together. The red flag? Too much, too soon. If someone is pushing for deep commitment, exclusivity, or declarations of love within days or weeks, your alarm bells should be ringing. Genuine connection builds over time. Love bombing is designed to bypass your natural caution and create dependency before you realize what's happening. The twin fantasy and specialness obsession. Another early warning sign that often gets misunderstood as compatibility is what psychologists call the twin fantasy, when someone insists you're alike in every possible way. We love the same music, we have the same values, we want the same things. It's like we're the same person. Sound familiar? While shared interests are wonderful, manipulators take this to an extreme. They're rigidly invested in maintaining a sense of specialness, and they need you to be part of that narrative. When you point out differences, you actually prefer different cuisine, or you'd rather have a planned date than a surprise outing, they may respond with irritation, withdrawal, or a wounded, "I thought we were on the same page." They might say things like, "I don't like games," when you set any boundary, making you feel like maintaining your individuality is somehow betraying the relationship. This is a critical red flag. Manipulators are uncomfortable with your separateness because it threatens their control. They cope with attachment insecurities by maintaining a sense of themselves as so special and exceptional that differences feel like rejection rather than normal human variation. Healthy relationships celebrate both similarities and differences. They respect your autonomy. Wolves in sheep's clothing require you to mirror them perfectly, and they punish you emotionally when you don't. The empathy desert, where compassion goes to die. One of the most significant warning signs of a manipulator is a profound lack of genuine empathy. Empathy allows us to walk in another person's shoes, to understand and care about what others are feeling. Manipulators simply cannot or will not do this. Watch how they respond when you're upset, struggling, or need support. Do they dismiss your feelings? Do they show little compassion? Are they indifferent to your emotions or the emotions of others? These are massive red flags. Narcissists are often uncomfortable with vulnerable feelings like sadness, loneliness, shame, or fear because they don't trust that anyone will truly care about them. The most narcissistic people cope by maintaining a sense of themselves as so special that they never need to face emotional risk. This means they can't be there for you when you're vulnerable, because vulnerability itself threatens their psychological defense system. You might notice they never ask open-ended questions about your inner world. They'll ask chocolate or vanilla, but never, "Why do you feel that way?" They collect surface information about you, data they can use later, but they don't genuinely care about understanding your deeper self. Only their opinions, thoughts, and feelings matter. Gaslighting, the reality distortion tactic. Perhaps no manipulation tactic is more insidious than gaslighting, a tactic designed to make you question your own memory, perception, and sanity. Gaslighting happens when you confront someone about their behavior, abuse, or lies, and they tell you it never happened. They might say, "You're being too sensitive. That's not what I said. You're remembering it wrong. You're crazy. That never happened. Why are you making such a big deal out of nothing?" Over time, this creates a devastating effect. You start to doubt your own perceptions. You second-guess your memory. You wonder if maybe you really are too sensitive, too emotional, too much. The manipulator successfully transfers their wrongdoing onto you, making you feel responsible for their actions. Research shows that persistent denial of events and inducing self-doubt are critical warning signs of manipulation. If you find yourself constantly confused, questioning your reality, or feeling like you can't trust your own judgment in someone's presence, you're likely experiencing gaslighting. The most important thing to remember: if you feel confused in a relationship, pay attention. You will rarely, if ever, be confused by someone who has pure, good, loving intentions toward you. Confusion is often your mind's way of signaling that something is very wrong. Guilt tripping and emotional blackmail. Manipulators are masters at making you feel responsible for their emotions, their choices, and their happiness. This tactic is called guilt tripping, and it's devastatingly effective. Guilt tripping involves making someone feel responsible or guilty for their actions or decisions, often using something they did for the other person as leverage. It sounds like, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me? If you really loved me, you would. I'm working all the time while you're spending time with friends. I deserve this. If you can't come over, then I might as well not invite anyone." This tactic also includes emotional blackmail, threats designed to control your behavior. An abuser might say they'll never find someone as good as them, that you'll be alone forever, or even threaten self-harm if you leave. They take delight in pointing out your weaknesses under the guise of helpfulness, demonstrating how much you need them because only they can help you become better. The pattern is clear. They make their emotional state, their happiness, and their problems your responsibility. When you try to set boundaries or prioritize your own needs, they make you feel selfish, uncaring, or cruel. Over time, you become so focused on managing their emotions that you completely lose touch with your own needs. The blame-shifting masterclass. With a wolf in sheep's clothing, nothing is ever their fault. If they're late, it's because you didn't remind them. If they're rude, it's because you're too sensitive. If they cheat, it's because you weren't meeting their needs. The narrative is always twisted to make you responsible for their behavior. Blame shifting, also called deflection, is one of the most damaging tactics because it leaves you in a state of constant confusion and self-doubt. It's emotional manipulation at its finest. Over time, you might genuinely start to believe them. Maybe I am overreacting. Maybe it is my fault. Maybe if I just tried harder. But the truth is, accountability matters. People who genuinely care about you take responsibility for their actions. They apologize sincerely when they hurt you. They don't make excuses or twist the situation to avoid blame. Wolves in sheep's clothing are incapable of genuine apologies. They offer non-apology apologies, statements that sound like apologies but contain no admission of wrongdoing. I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry if you were hurt. I'm sorry you took it that way. Notice what's missing. They never actually apologize for what they did. They apologize for your reaction to what they did. This is not accountability. This is more manipulation. Isolation, cutting off your support system. One of the most dangerous phases of manipulation is isolation, when the manipulator systematically separates you from friends, family, and anyone who might recognize what's happening and intervene. This doesn't happen overnight. It's gradual and subtle. They might start by making negative comments about your friends. I don't think they really care about you like I do. Your family doesn't understand you the way I do. Your friends are a bad influence. They might create conflict by starting drama with your loved ones, or simply make it uncomfortable for you to maintain those relationships, pouting when you spend time with others, creating crises that require your attention when you have plans. The goal is to separate you from people who might spot the manipulation. Once you're isolated, you become completely dependent on the manipulator for emotional support, validation, and even your sense of reality. You have no outside perspective to help you see what's really happening. If you notice someone in your life trying to come between you and your support system, this is a critical red flag. Healthy partners encourage your connections with loved ones. They want you to have a rich, full life that includes other people. Manipulators want you all to themselves, not out of love, but out of control. The silent treatment and passive-aggressive punishment. The silent treatment is psychological warfare disguised as withdrawal. It's a head game where silence is used as a form of leverage and punishment. When you've done something the manipulator doesn't like, set a boundary, disagreed with them, spent time with others, they disappear. They don't respond to your calls, texts, or emails. They withdraw emotionally, leaving you in a state of doubt and uncertainty. The manipulator presumes power by making you wait, by making you guess what you did wrong, by making you desperate for their return. This isn't someone who needs space to process their feelings. This is calculated emotional abuse. The silence is designed to train you not to repeat whatever behavior upset them. It conditions you to prioritize their feelings and needs over your own, to walk on eggshells, to constantly monitor your behavior to avoid triggering their withdrawal. Passive-aggressive behavior follows a similar pattern. They don't voice negative feelings directly. Instead, they find subtle, indirect ways to express anger and undermine you. They agree to help with your project, then forget or do it half-heartedly. They make sarcastic comments disguised as jokes. They comply with your requests, but make sure you know they're unhappy about it. The result? You feel chronically confused, always trying to figure out what's really wrong, what they really mean, whether you're reading too much into things. That confusion is the goal. It keeps you off balance and focused on them. The devaluation phase, from pedestal to garbage. Remember that initial love bombing when you felt like the most amazing person in the world? Manipulators follow a predictable three-phase cycle: idealization, devaluation, and discard. After the idealization phase establishes emotional dependency, the devaluation phase begins. Criticism becomes more common. The compliments stop. They start pointing out your flaws, comparing you unfavorably to others, dismissing your achievements and efforts. Everything you do is somehow wrong or not enough. This phase is particularly devastating because you remember how they used to treat you. You know they're capable of seeing you as wonderful, so you blame yourself for the change. You think, what did I do wrong? How can I get back to how things were? You try harder, sacrifice more, lose more of yourself trying to recapture that initial magic. But here's the painful truth. The initial phase was never real. It was a mask, a tactic designed to hook you. The devaluation is their true self emerging. People with manipulative tendencies need to maintain superiority, and the easiest way to feel superior is to make you feel inferior. They elevate themselves by putting you down. It's a way of maintaining control in the relationship, to keep you desperate for their approval, to ensure you never feel confident enough to leave. Recognizing your vulnerability. Understanding why some people become targets is crucial for protection. Research shows that vulnerability to manipulation can stem from several factors: being too dependent on others, lacking maturity or life experience, being naive or impressionable, having high levels of trust, being impulsive, having strong altruistic tendencies, or being in a vulnerable life situation. If you're empathetic, kind, eager to please, avoid confrontation, or struggle with low self-esteem, you may be particularly appealing to manipulators. They target these exact qualities because your desire to help, to understand, and to give second chances can be exploited. This isn't your fault. These are beautiful human qualities. The problem isn't that you're empathetic or trusting. The problem is that wolves in sheep's clothing weaponize these strengths against you. Trusting your emotional responses. Your body and emotions often recognize manipulation before your conscious mind does. Learn to trust these signals: persistent confusion, constant self-doubt, anxiety that wasn't there before, feeling exhausted after interactions, walking on eggshells, constantly apologizing, feeling responsible for their emotions, second-guessing your memories, or feeling like something is off even when you can't explain why. These aren't random feelings. They're your internal alarm system working exactly as designed. When your emotions are telling you something is wrong, listen. Protection and recovery. If you recognize these patterns in someone you know, here's what you need to do. Document everything. Keep records of conversations, incidents, and patterns. Manipulation often happens gradually, and having documentation helps you see the bigger picture and trust your perceptions when they try to gaslight you. Set and enforce clear boundaries. Name specific behaviors that are unacceptable and follow through with consequences when boundaries are crossed. Be prepared for their reaction. Manipulators often escalate when you first set boundaries because they're losing control. Reconnect with your support system. Reach out to friends and family you may have drifted from. You need outside perspectives and people who can remind you of your worth. Seek professional help. Therapists experienced in trauma and manipulation can provide objective insight and help you develop effective strategies for protecting yourself. Consider ending the relationship. Sometimes the only way to protect yourself is to remove yourself completely from the manipulator's access. This isn't giving up, it's choosing yourself. Wolves in sheep's clothing are all around us, in our families, workplaces, social circles, and romantic relationships. They don't wear signs announcing their intentions. Instead, they wear the most convincing disguise of all: charm, concern, and care. But now you know the truth. You understand the patterns. You recognize the tactics. Love bombing that feels too intense. Isolation that separates you from support. Gaslighting that makes you doubt reality. Guilt tripping that makes their problems yours. Blame shifting that makes you responsible for their actions. Devaluation that destroys your self-worth. Knowledge is your greatest protection. Trust your intuition. Honor your confusion. Document patterns. Set boundaries. Seek support. And remember this above all: you deserve relationships built on genuine respect, mutual care, and authentic love, not manipulation and control. The sheep's clothing might be convincing, but if you look closely enough, you can always see the wolf underneath. And once you see it, you can protect yourself before they strike. Stay vigilant. Stay connected to yourself, and never let anyone convince you that your reality isn't real.